think people are doing other.
Drinking and smoking yourself, don't even wanna try. Make room for somebody else. Oh, I just wanna hide out from under all these indecisions. Oh, make room for somebody else. Circling the edge, way up high. Don't know if I'll ever have a useful alibi. Gone too far to stop. Yeah, I tried. Flying, crashing, looking for a perfect suicide. Circling the edge.
Of fame, kill the crows that point the blame. Our voice is a fast change. I never said I would take your side. I just said I would compromise. What if you made me put up a fight? I'll fight back till the day I die.
Awesome.
So obviously Sans camera today.
It's a little weird today.
It's been a little weird for the last few months.
Yeah, but today's a
Whoa.
little more weird. We're reverting back to audio only.
Not permanently, just
Permanently. Just we had some. I had some technical issues.
Yeah, I was about to say we. What's this we? What are you talking about?
Man, we're a team. we're only as strong as our weakest link.
No comment.
Anywho, what's up, Sean? How you been, man?
Busy, very, very busy. You know, I mentioned it last time. It feels like when everybody else kind of slows down, we pick up, and I've just been rolling, man. It's crazy. A lot of other stuff going on, but this has been like work has been crazy, and then streaming stuff and things like that too. So it's been a lot.
Hey, man, you've been pretty busy. You're doing the commentating work. You're a buck of the COVID League. That's what it's called, right? The COVID League.
Talking about SGL, and due to various things that I have to take care of on my end, I had to take a step back from SGL commentary. As I understand it, Scaman, Nintendo, and a few others have picked up the flag and started to run with it, and I'm very grateful, very glad for that. Unfortunately, I can't commit to that on Saturday afternoons or really Friday evenings anymore. So life's busy. Life does not slow down, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's tough right now. But man, speaking about life and life going on, man, we were on like a month ago, and we're in the midst of the COVID-19 and all that stuff, and whether or not the country's going to open back up. And now, we're kind of into phase 1 and seeing how that goes. But unfortunately, we have other issues pop up, and before we carry on with the show, obviously we all know what's going on in the news and what's going on in all these cities and towns with the protests and unfortunate death of Mr. Floyd. And the news today is that they have arrested the other 3 officers that were involved with the situation, along with the guy who had his knee on Mr. Floyd's neck. And I think I speak for myself and for Sean and Nestor and the background that that wrong is wrong, man. And we stand by the Black Lives Matters movement, and whatever you can do as whoever's listening out there, to help out, to whether if it's going out there and protest, stand hand by hand with our brothers and sisters, start supporting Black-owned businesses, start doing things, as far as just being more open-minded to being fair and honest, and doing right, man. We all live in this world together, hand in hand, and I believe it's one of those things where, unfortunately, this man's death was kind of like the last straw that broke the camel's back, and hopefully there's some good that comes out of all this that's going on right now.
And I just want to say, and it's not just from me, it's from really all of us, but we see you, we hear you, we hurt with you, we hurt for you, we do support you, and we do stand with you. And I think that really summarizes just about everything. I think you said it very well, Mark. But we of course have other stuff to get to as well. I don't want to dwell on this too long, but I did agree with you. I think we needed to take time to definitely address it and voice our support.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. So MLS is coming back.
Well, kind of. MLS Light is what we'll call it. MLS Light.
MLS Light.
Yeah. Okay. So Major League Soccer and the Major League Soccer Players Association have agreed to a new CBA, which will run through 2025, which is actually very impressive because there were a lot of sticking points previously before this, COVID especially, but even before that, related to a new CBA, and they had a tentative one that they were playing under to start the season. And so getting one extended to 2025 is a pretty big deal.
I really got to commend the Players Association and the owners and the whole league, because obviously you see what's going on with Major League Baseball, and how they're going back and forth, and there's a real possibility there's not going to be a baseball season this year, and for MLS to kind of put some common sense into it and understand the situation from both sides, and understand that you have to give a little from each side. It's great, man. And I'm glad that MLS soccer is going to push forward and, have this little tournament that they're going to have. And we'll see how it goes, man. Regardless of the fact, we're going to have live soccer and we'll be able to sit back and support our teams now.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's not going to be home matches for any team because fans basically will not be allowed in attendance. So it's really, in my opinion, the reason I say MLS Light is we're looking more or less at like a preseason, essentially, tournament that just happens to include all teams. They do say that they are going to include the results, the records from this tournament, basically into the regular season results as well. So it's important that all teams get out to a good start. My expectation, what I've heard, is we're looking at about 2 weeks of practice and training time for teams to get reacclimated, and develop that match fitness and that sort of thing, together, and then, or amongst themselves with each of with their teammates, and then following that 2 week period, there will be essentially a 2 to 3 week sprint of matches. Every groups will be comprised of, I believe, 3 teams. Who will all face off against each other, and then from there, the top team in each group will advance to a knockout stage and ultimately get to a final. No word yet from anybody on what we're looking at for, or what the league is offering up as prize money for winning this or for placing in this. But it's definitely interesting because it is the first tournament of its kind for MLS. It is the first time MLS will compete in a tournament that they essentially are putting on themselves. I think it's really interesting to see how it is going to work in Orlando, right there, in the Disney Resort where the ESPN studio, or not studios, but the ESPN area is there. The ABC, World of Sports area is there as well.
Mickey Mouse's house.
Mickey Mouse's house, yeah, for sure. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, with the NBA also probably ending up playing there to start their season, or to restart their season, or really dive into playoffs at this point for them. So it's just going to be interesting there. And again, we talked about it on last episode that we are in a situation as a society that is unprecedented. And some of that, lack of precedence comes from not just, what we're dealing with in terms of COVID-19, but also from the fact of how connected we are as a society, how easy it is to travel from point A to point B across the world, changing between countries, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a higher proliferation rate when you have such things in place. If this was a few hundred years ago before airplanes, where it's a different situation. So, bearing all of that in mind, the intent is to have players and staff of teams basically housed in one singular location, separate from other teams, they're all going to house basically in one hotel or one resort. And so they'll all be living together, but they will be separated from their families, separated from external forces, to ensure that they remain healthy and don't contract any, or don't have the potential to contract COVID-19.
So, I mean, when I was before we got on the show, I was, kind of prepping a little bit about this topic, and I kind of ran through something actually real quick, and I didn't really have time to read it or skim through it, and maybe you saw it too, Sean. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but so after they have this little tournament in Orlando, they're gonna see where everything's at the end of the tournament and try to have an additional 15 to 20 games afterwards.
Intent is to host, or not host, but play as many matches back at home for each team as possible.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly what I saw. So I mean, I guess it all depends on what happens from after the initial tournament, and hopefully, the COVID-19 virus pandemic goes down a little bit, and it doesn't really affect, or it doesn't have another hike in results. And just while we're talking about this, this just came out actually not too long ago. An FC Dallas player tested positive for COVID-19 today. I don't know if you saw that.
And it's not surprising. I mean,
Yeah.
not to make light of the fact that Frisco is a complete and utter trash dump to begin with, but it's not surprising because you have players that have and were at one point able to travel home and see their families, and those family members, it is very possible that at the outset of this stuff, at the outset of COVID-19, when it hit the area, that it is very likely or very possible that they could have come in contact with somebody. And furthermore, it only takes things like a delivery driver delivering food, or you go out and you go get food, for something like that to take place. And it is imperative for players to understand, and I think most players do, but it's imperative for players to understand that they are professionals first and foremost, which means that while it is an inconvenience to not be able to just order food or go pick up food, they have to be extremely careful because it's their livelihood. And that's not to make light of the severity of what COVID-19 is, but they are putting their teammates in jeopardy. They are putting the technical staff in jeopardy, which is, I think, one of the reasons why MLS is enforcing the, having every player tested prior to this, having every technical staff member and every staff member of each team tested prior, but further also making sure that they do consistent testing throughout the entire stage of this MLS light period, if you will.
Sure. I mean, for sure. I mean, and I think it would be naive of MLS or any league in that, and matter of fact, that to go in thinking that nobody's gonna get the disease while they're playing, right? So I mean, obviously, you're not gonna go in thinking like, oh, well, if one player or one person from a staff, get the COVID-19 virus, that we're just gonna stop, then there would be no point in starting. There's a plan in place. I mean, I don't think any of the leagues in the country are going in thinking that nobody's gonna contract the disease, because if one person did, and that's all it takes to shut down the season again for whatever league, then why would you start up in the first place, So I mean,
for sure.
And of course, they're going to highly extreme methods to test everybody, to make sure everybody's good, nobody's bad, healthy, and if somebody is potentially at risk for it, then make sure to kind of quarantine that player or staff member away from the team, or move them away from as soon as possible, so that way there's a lower amount of risk in contracting the disease for other players and staff members.
I think the one thing that is kind of short-sighted, in my opinion, and the one thing that concerns me, is when you get this number of people interacting, on a regular basis against each other, and no matter what, what restrictions you put in place, there is a very real possibility, because of how COVID-19 spreads and because of how long it takes to actually show up and register in an individual system, that it is very easy for someone to be infected and to carry the disease and not even show symptoms initially, which means the whole idea of we'll check a temperature and that that should be sufficient, it only goes so far. And just because a player doesn't have it when you test them initially, which I'm assuming they're not going to test them until they actually get to the resort, because otherwise you have to restrict their entire movement between the airport to the resort, and then from there on. So there's a lot of, and we talked about it before, starting the season in period was going to be a logistical nightmare, but doing it in this fashion is still a logistical nightmare. It's just a completely different logistical nightmare. And am I excited to see soccer returning, especially MLS soccer? Absolutely. But on the flip side, I still definitely am not a fan of seeing it pushed so quickly. I think that I would err on the side of the players and staff and keeping them safe. And I realize there's an economic impact for the teams and things like that, and that's fine. But I think, those things have to be thrown out the window for a good period of time. And Go ahead.
Sean, I mean, obviously, I'm always on the side of caution, and making sure that everybody's safe and healthy and all that good stuff. But I think the fact, with the Bundesliga doing so well, and now that they're really, like, every team's played about 3 or 4 games now, I think that's really motivated all these leagues around the world, and especially here in the United States, to kind of move forward, to kind of, obviously, we don't want anybody to contract the disease, right? In a perfect world, that would not happen. But I mean, obviously, we don't live in a perfect world, and I think it's one of those things where when would be the right time,
Sure.
The MLS season. No, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, I think my concern centers around the fact that Germany is farther ahead than we are in the overall process. And so, yes, we are starting. MLS will be starting up a couple of weeks later than or about a month later, really, by the time this is all said and done, than Bundesliga, and that's great. But there's still travel involved. In Germany, they can all bus to where they're playing. They're not having to fly, or they can take separate private charters. I don't know if they're taking private charters for teams. I think they're probably most likely, riding on commercial airlines, and so
Also,
you
I
know
think
that puts an onus on the league to make sure that they are doing everything they can to protect the players. And in my experience, when it comes to MLS, it is not about the safety and security of their players, no matter what they may tout publicly. It ultimately comes down to the bottom line and how it impacts the owners' pockets. And the owners right now are struggling because they're not making any money, no matter what anybody wants to think. They're making zero money because there are no matches being played.
yeah, because I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, the MLS as a league is so, they need that match day money. They don't have the big TV deals like the NBA or NFL or Major League Baseball or any of the big soccer leagues around the world. So that match day money, whatever happens in merchandise and stadium sales and what all that stuff, that's what they basically live by, right? So, but going back to the thing with the Bundesliga, doing well. I mean, yeah, I understand completely. Obviously, Germany is a far smaller country that it's way easier to travel around, especially in bus and stuff like that. But who knows? I mean, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Would you be against something to maybe regionalize it a little bit for the remaining games of the season after this tournament's over, if it's possible? I mean, if that would be the best way, I guess, where you can travel in bus. I mean, I know traveling in bus is so hard. It's so hard, but or maybe even taking a plane, but obviously a plane that wouldn't be
Would have to be.
full.
I mean, it would have to be private chartered.
Yeah.
I think I think what they probably could have done is similar to what MLB was proposing, which is having basically a few different locations, which are essentially, it's like spring training for MLB, where they have specific locations where
Arizona and Florida.
yeah, where teams are gathering together, but you're still splitting it, so you're ensuring that the entire league is not exposed in the event of one set situation. I just, like I said, I think there's, and I am not one to necessarily always err on the side of caution. In this instance, though, we are talking about the consequences of rushing too soon, regardless of everything else. The consequences are as severe as they can possibly be. If you get this wrong, this is absolutely the one thing you cannot afford to get wrong. And I don't mean from a monetary standpoint. I mean from a survivability of your league standpoint. You cannot afford to get this wrong, period. And full stop. There's no more to say to that. But with that being said, I do think they need to return, but I think it needs to be done differently. I don't agree with the idea of everyone gathering in Orlando. We've heard the stories of how things took place. If you haven't read the articles, they're out there on The Athletic, and by God, I recommend you read them, talking about how it used to be back in the day when MLS teams would all gather in one location, in one resort in Miami. Now, yes, Miami is very different from Orlando, but it is still the same type of scenario where you're talking about every player from every team, every technical staff member from every team being in the same area at the same general time, and the things that will take place, because these are athletes, these are professional athletes that have become accustomed to certain things, that there are things that are going to take place during this that the league is not going to be able to control, no matter how much they think they might be able to.
No,
And Go ahead.
No, and then given the fact that I mean, I don't know if you saw the news today. There was a spike in COVID-19
In
test
Florida.
in Florida today. So I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that's not good news for MLS or the NBA. Depending on what's going on, because like I said, I mean, that's where I think if they regionalized it, where there was maybe a north, south, east, west region, where instead of everybody going to Orlando, what do we have? 22 teams right now? Divide into four, 6 teams per, or divide into three locations, and then have one in California, have one here in Texas, and then have one maybe in East Coast. I wouldn't recommend New York at this time, obviously, or do Florida, since you're doing
To be fair,
Florida
I don't
already.
recommend New York either way, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, so I mean, but you got Florida, so I mean, you're doing Florida, so do Florida.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's maybe something different like that, because or like the NWSL, where you go to Utah, there's not really that many people in Utah, overall as a state. I think there's more people maybe in Orlando than there is the whole state of Utah. I mean, who knows, and something like that.
Think about this as well from an NWSL versus an MLS standpoint. The difference between what NWSL and MLS is doing is NWSL is creating a place where it is just them. They're creating a specific buzz around it. MLS is going to a place where they're not going to be the top dog in town.
Obviously
they're not going to be the focus at this point. And so, to me, again, we're talking short-sightedness, things like that. I suspect MLS is probably getting some level of kickback, which is covering some of the salary money that they've lost, that they've had to pay the players, regardless of the fact that the players aren't playing right now. I think they're getting some level of kickback from their broadcast partner in ESPN to host it at this location in Orlando. And that's all good and well, but again, we're coming back to the same point that I've been saying all along. These decisions are being made about money. They're not being made about the best interest of players. They're not being made in the best interest of the technical staff and staff related to the teams. It's being made in the best interest of the pockets of the owners first and foremost, and the players are the ones that will suffer if something is not done correctly.
I mean, obviously it's obviously everything's driven by money right now, because obviously all the money that's been lost, advertising, like I said, match day revenue, all that stuff, and unfortunately, we're to a point where we're almost 4 months into this now, with the COVID-19. I know time's just like as by, man, and it's crazy that we're in June and possibly even July, and we and nothing, and we're still going on the same thing. And to mention what Cisco said in the chat, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Obviously all these protests and all these people gathering, and there's like thousands and tens of thousands. And obviously yesterday in Houston, there's a huge gathering of almost 60,000. That's NRG Stadium, basically, of people, gathering in one area, and let's see how that goes. Because I mean, if we hear a week or 2 weeks from now, and there's a huge spike in COVID-19, cases because of this, then guess what? We're going back into our homes, and if there's not, then I hate to use this term because of what's going on, but there might be some, there might be something to this thing going on right now. It might be what kind of gets us out of it, because if all these people are gathering like this, and there's no spike, then maybe it's good to go, and
like I said, I mean, it's not so much that this is a guarantee that it's the wrong decision or anything like that. It's just I don't trust MLS as far as I can throw them when it comes to league personnel, and that's nothing against the league itself. I really have nothing against MLS, as everybody knows. I love MLS.
Yeah.
However,
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Obviously the best, the interest is of the players and the people out there who are going to be affected by this. Obviously, right? The people who are making the decisions to, hey, let's keep going. They're sitting back in their offices or in their and wherever they're at, just making decisions off a keyboard, off a Zoom meeting, and then the players and staff and personnel are the ones who are going to go out there and possibly suffer, by contracting this disease, if that the worst case scenario.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I mean, yeah, you're spot on. That's exactly what I was referring to. And like I said, I mean, Cisco, says the statement. How crazy is this, though? Now that you bring up money, Elis was just offered the largest contract ever for a Dynamo player, according to what he has said in Honduran media, to the Honduran media. And Cisco says teams aren't making money, yet the cheap owners can go out and make a legitimate offer like that.
So I have a theory, and I'm playing. I'm gonna play a little bit. I'm gonna play the sinister role here.
Go
So
for it.
so obviously, you know, it's at least his mind's set up. He's gonna go to Europe, right? He has his heart, his mind, and everything set on going to Europe, and I don't blame him. I mean, you know, it's every player's dream to go play in Europe, right? So I mean, why not, as the Dynamo PR, why not throw out there that, hey, look, we'll offer him the largest contract in club history. The deal's on the table. We're doing what we need to do financial wise in a situation where finances are not the greatest to keep our best player. You know, it's kind of like, oh, okay, you know, well, I guess they are trying, but realistically, I mean, Elis has been already one foot out the door for like a year now, and if this was the case, they should have done this way before his contract came up close to expiring, because anybody in the soccer world knows if you have a true player of talent, you try to lock him up like at least a year, 18 months before his contract comes to an end, because then it's, you know, he's free game to anybody. So, I mean, I don't know how much of a, you know, yeah, you know, the Dynamo are out here throwing money, air quotes, you know, to try to keep Elis, you know. But that's just the sinister side of me thinking.
No, I get the cynical side. I get it. But I'm going to throw it back at you. Did I not, and did we not talk about the fact that I expected to see the Dynamo before the end of this season offer at least the largest contract in history for the Dynamo? I said those exact things were going to happen.
I said
The reason I said, go ahead.
And
No, I
I
was gonna
said,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go. Talk.
I said, if I'm Elis's agent, I'm doing my due diligence, making sure that I have a legit offer on the table from the Dynamo in case something doesn't go right in Europe, or in case the right clubs don't come after Elis, right? Because as an agent, I don't care where he plays. I care about the money, you know?
Of course.
So and I said this in a prior shows, as an agent, I'm doing my due diligence and I'm coming to the Dynamo and seeing what they have to offer. Now, if this offer is legit, and let's say it's a 2 to 2.5 million a year, you know, deal, that's legit money. You know, that's legit money. Who comes after Elis after the season is over? And obviously, there's a situation of not a lot of clubs have money to spend because of the financial devastation of the pandemic that's going on all around the world. We'll see. But if that deal is for sure on the table, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after the season is over. You know, because like I said, it's one thing to want to go to Europe, but it's another thing whether Europe is going to come get you.
Right, and Europe has come knocking previously, but again, we are in a time where it's not the same thing anymore. Teams do not have the same amount of money to spend that they did, you know, in the past, and players are not being sold like they were in the past. It is a very different climate in global soccer right now.
But in this situation, he wouldn't. There's one thing of a pro on his side is that he doesn't need to be sold. He becoming a free, so that is a pro on his side.
But is it for his agent? Because again, you spoke about his agent. So if I'm the agent, that is a very big question mark, because let's say that a team offers him less in Europe and he has nothing to fall back on here in the US. He declines the Dynamo's offer. He is stuck. He will have nothing. So if I'm an agent, I'm not necessarily going to go with the guaranteed money right out of the gate, but I'm certainly going to try to drive that price up. And if the Dynamo have already offered the largest contract that they've ever offered in Dynamo history, then you have to believe they're willing to go even higher. Now, the reason I had said before this season began in the offseason, really towards the end of last season on this show, the reason I said that I expected to see Elis being handed an additional contract of large proportions is because in my opinion, he is good enough for it, but B, because the Dynamo understand the value they have in this player. It is a business decision, but it is also a decision that makes sense. This is a player that is marketable. This is a player that you can stick in front of fans, that is personable with fans. This is a player that has an off the field record that is immaculate. This is a player who spends his own money to build schools in Honduras from in his hometown and otherwise.
There's no
This is a
doubt.
player who has a connection with the side of the fan base that you want to pull in. This is a player that speaks to the type of mentality that you are, type of atmosphere that you're trying to build in the stadium, that you're trying to build with Hustletown and the Surge and otherwise. He is exactly what you need from a marketing standpoint, and the team knows it. And that's why you spend this level of money, whatever this level of money is. My expectation, based on what I've heard, is probably somewhere between 1.5 and 2 million is what he's been offered. And that is a significant jump over the 1.1 that Morrow is making and the 1.1 that Kiki is making. Both of them make 1.1. That would make Elis your third DP. Now, with that being said, here's the caveat to all of this. Even if the Dynamo sign Elis, they have no intention of keeping him beyond that first year, potentially even a second year if it's necessary, but they have every intention to sell him, which is why they can afford for one season, the rest of this season and all of next season, to go ahead and pay him a large salary. Because they can afford to do that for 1 to 1.5 years. And they know they will recoup whatever they pay now back in the transfer fee that they will get back in the process.
And obviously, you know, what you said is true. I mean, there's no coincidence that national team has, it seems like they play like 5 matches a year here at BBVA Stadium, you know, and obviously the Honduran community and Houston is a pretty large community. You know, he puts butts in seats. You know, people come out and support him, and you know, from his native country, and obviously the Dynamo fans love him. You know, he's a really great player. You know, obviously one of our top 2 players in the team, and like you said, obviously it would be smart of the Dynamo to offer this money. And like I said, if I was the agent, I would have them bump his pay, obviously, and put a release clause that we can both agree upon that would be both good business for the team and good business for Elis as a player. Because right now, like I said, Elis leaves, the Dynamo get nothing, you know, and it's basically thank you for the time and see you when I see you. You know, at least at this point, if Elis' agent is in his ear and tells him, hey, you know what? This summer transfer window or winter transfer window, whenever he's able to leave, it's not looking good. As far as the teams that are coming, they're not coming with the money that we thought they were going to come with because of the obvious situations around the world. Let's sign this contract with the Dynamo, whether if it's 1.5 to 2.5 million a year, which is a significant bump from his current salary, which I think is 600K or 700K a year.
750 a year.
Yeah, so it's a significant bump. Plus, you get to play in a league that you're comfortable with and go all out. And then, you know, we have a release clause in the contract that we know that as long as they meet the release clause, you're able to go. There will be no interference from the Dynamo to, you know, not allow you to go.
You know,
and it's fair for all the sides.
Oh, absolutely. And I come back to the fact, and I said this a long time ago previously, and many will remember it because I said it. But, you know, one of the reasons I think that this has been coming for a while is the fact that the Dynamo understand they have a coach now that is a coach that is truly a personable coach that players do like to actually play for and will stick around to play for and take a little bit less money to play for. Now, do I expect Elis is going to take less money? No, because he's been in a situation that he was not a fan of for quite a while. The Wilmer situation was not his favorite, to say the least. And so, you know, it is interesting to me. I really believe that this has been the Dynamo's plan the whole time. It just really, honestly, COVID and everything else has played to their advantage to allow them to offer a contract that they, you know, maybe wouldn't normally offer. And the reason I say it that way is if you think that Elis could potentially leave and go get a contract roughly the same amount overseas in Europe, you're not going to, you know, you may offer it, but you don't expect him to accept it. I think in this case, the Dynamo fully expect him to accept it at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you always got to weigh your options. You can't never just not have a backup plan. And like I said, great job for Elise's agent for doing his due diligence and at least having this offer on the table, you know. And I don't think the Dynamo are going to do anything where you have this time limit to sign this offer or it's gone. Like, no, I don't think you do that. This is one of your two top players, and it's a player who, like you said previously, puts butts in seats, is well involved in his community here in Houston and both in Honduras, and he's a national team player. He's an up and coming player. He's a player who brings excitement to your team, who scores goals, who assists, who does basically everything that you want him to do. So I hope, you know, that if it doesn't go well as far as, you know, the European contacts and all that stuff that don't come through, I mean, I hope he resigns. You know, obviously I enjoy watching him play, and I enjoy watching him in orange, and I hope it goes on for at least another year, another normal year instead of this tournament that we're gonna have. But you know, it's crazy because, I mean, obviously in that same interview that you mentioned earlier with the Honduran media that he had, you know, he said he had an offer from the Premier League. Obviously, we know all the interest from Fenerbahce, and he had an interest from I think he said 2 clubs from France and one La Liga club, I believe he said. But I mean, the interest is there. I mean, it's just, I'm not too sure as far as like, well, which clubs, you know. Obviously the Fenerbahce is that's a renowned club in the world, you know. Obviously it's one of the 2 top clubs in Turkey, and they play Champions League football when they're doing well. But
they were backed by oil money. They were backed by oil money, and that money ain't there anymore.
Yeah. but I mean, if, let's say, for example, Aston Villa is the Premier League team. Sorry, Kyle, to throw Aston Villa there. Is a team offering the contract to Elis, and you know, and they fall to the second division. I mean, do you leave to go to Europe to play in the second division? I mean, if the money is pretty much the same thing,
it's not gonna be the same thing. You're not making $1 million a year in any second division in any league of the world.
Well, I mean, you know,
not even in the championship, you're not making $2 million a year. You're not.
Yeah, so I mean, I also gotta think that the right club has to be the one calling. I mean, if you're talking about, I don't, you know, an Everton or something like that, then yeah, I could see the move happening. But I don't know if you go for a club that's in regulation battle or in the regulation zone.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, it's this is one of those situations. It's a wait and see. It's always fun to speculate, but there's so much tied to it, and it's just, again, we're in a different time where the speculation we can make is based off of the past. It's based off things we know, and right now there's so much we don't know. There's so much that is unknown. I think, you know, and going back to the agent real quick, I think if I'm the agent, considering the climate of global soccer right now, I think I'm going with the known. I really am, because I think that there's enough of a pull from a you know, air quote celebrity type of situation for Elis to be able to continue build his name here and keep with the guarantee. And for him, the benefit is, you know, it's not like Europe won't still be there in 2 to 3 seasons. It's still going to be there. It's just you get the opportunity as a player, and your agent has the opportunity as your agent to take the time to let this stuff go to the wayside, so that you can get a legitimate offer on the table and actually have something that you're comfortable accepting, and not having to play not having to take a hit to your value simply because you want to play that desperately in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, and he's still 23, 24 years old. I mean, I know in soccer, you know, once you get 25, if you're not like playing at the prime level of your football, it's kind of like, well, you're cutting it kind of close. So, I mean, but I mean, you know, 23, 24, you know, he's still there. He can still play another year. And then, you know, like I said, you know, if a big enough European team comes calling, then yeah, for sure, man. Thank you for your service here with the Dynamo, and we'll see you when we see you.
Yeah, for sure. With that being said, I think kind of the last topic to talk about today. Have you seen the pictures of the Dash kit yet?
The Oiler kits?
Yeah, the Oiler kits.
Yeah, man. I'm not. I mean, I like them. Don't get me wrong. I like them. I don't really see obviously the Oiler, because, you know, it has the orange instead of the red. But, you know, I see where they were trying to go with it. It's nice. It's a nice kit, you know, and that home kit is still that home kit is still fire. The away kit is pretty good though. I'm not gonna lie.
I actually feel the opposite. I do like the home kit. Don't get me wrong. I like it a lot. I think it's a great kit. I really, really am drawn to these Oiler kits. I really, really am. And I don't know specifically what it is. Don't ask me. I don't know. But there's just something about these kits that they just look so clean to me. And there's all these little things, which every team does now, but there's all these little details that really speak to the history of Houston sports. And it's not just the Astrodome, tie to the Astrodome, not just the tie to the, the Oilers, but there's a real feeling of, this is a Houston history kit type thing. This is something that you do when you are trying to pay homage to, to your past in terms of the city. And I think what I like about the kit is the kit, like, it sits well. It's not a kit that when people wear it, it's going to look, it's going to look different. It's going to look the same way no matter who's wearing it. And that to me is an important, feature of a kit that a lot of people tend to forget. And we've seen only with the Dash players wearing this kit so far, there aren't a lot of pictures out there yet of other people wearing this kit. I know that somebody in the Surge Discord has already gotten their new kit for the new Dash kit, but they haven't worn it yet. And so, I am interested to see when people start wearing it, what it actually looks like. But I am a fan, generally speaking, of clean white kits. Now, I don't want a solid white kit. I want a little bit of flair here and there, some sort of different, right? Yeah. And I think this kit achieves enough of that without trying to be too much. I feel like this is one of those kits that a lot of people, they feel like the kit's trying too hard to be something it's not. And I reverse it and I say the kit is being just about as much as it can be without going overboard. It's different. It's different. It's not your standard white kit. And I think that throws people off. There's a lot of people that want that nostalgia of a soccer kit that is a classic soccer kit. And you're not going to get that in this day and age. What you're going to get is you're going to get something like this that is a little bit of this and a little bit of that and tying these two or three things together. And that's exactly what the Dash did. And that's why I really, really like this kit.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and I understand, trying to pay homage to the Oilers and that stuff and try to keep, all the, H-Town love, going on, especially with the hashtag holding down, all that stuff, trying to integrate all the Houston and amenities, into the team. And I'm looking at the kit right now. I mean, yeah, and obviously, yeah, it does look fire. It's just for me, and this is, like I said, nothing against it. I mean, like I said, the kit is legit, but I was just never an Oilers fan, man.
So
and that white jersey.
I mean, if you weren't an Oilers fan, then you have no tie. So that makes total sense. Why it's kind of like, okay, it's a mad kit. I get that. No, I got no problem with that.
So like,
but Nestor asked, do I like the new U.S. National team home kits? And my answer is no. And here's why. Those kits are just a bit too plain. There is just a little bit too little in that kit. And like I was saying, that kit's not trying to be anything. That kit is literally a solid white shirt with a few things thrown on it. And all of them are very, very basic things. There's not a lot to it. I really do mean that. There's not a lot. There's the inside the collar thing, and I hate that inside the collar thing on this particular kit in the US kit because that red doesn't go well with that kit whatsoever inside the collar. And if you've seen that kit, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, with that being said, I like the Dash kit because of the different things that they did. But again, they didn't try to be too much. And that's kind of the difference I feel. Whereas the US kit, I feel like it's too, like I said, it's too solid white. I don't like solid white kits. I want a little more than that. Yes, there's trim around the arms and there's trim, like very light trim along the sides, but I don't think that, in my opinion, that in that particular manner was enough. Did I lose you, Mark? Did you mute yourself?
I got an email from work.
I know them feels.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. Yeah, like I said, I'm not trying to, negative towards the kid or nothing like that. It's legit. I just, like I think, like it's one of those things about white kits that, just, I don't know. It's like, were you a fan of the Dynamo white kit, the one with the Amigo Energy logo on the front of it?
I actually have a copy of that kit, or I have a version of that kit.
I have a version of that kit. So, I mean, it's a cool kit, but something about, when you go white, it's something about it that you just got to make sure you hit on it, because, pulling off a white kit is pretty hard. It's for obviously it looks good on a soccer player, obviously it's going to look good on Rachel Daly and Prince and all them girls. You know, it's gonna look great on them. But but normal folks like you and me and and fans, I mean, gonna look good for us.
Well, here's another thing, Nestor, why I like this kit versus the US kit, and it's a really small feature, and it ties into the home kit or the away kit. If you look at the away kit for the Dash as well, there's that little V section right at the where the two bits of the collar meet, the V of the collar meet. That's a little bit. It's got that sky blue oil or blue color. I like that. There's nothing like that for the US kit. The US kit is just a solid white, and I don't. It just doesn't look as good. It just doesn't to me.
I got you. But yeah, no, I mean, like I said, yeah, the kits are good. I mean, it's cool. But like I said prior, I mean, just that if they're ever trying to go after the Oiler home kit that home jersey that there was before, I was never a big fan of that all white with the baby blue colors and the red outlines, for the Oilers. So
I do want to say, and a huge shout out to Soccer for All, the work that was done to put together the Houston Dash shop online is just phenomenal. It looks clean. It looks crisp. All the merch that's available right now is worth taking a look at. And just being able to get stuff like a Love You Dash sticker that you can throw on your car, your computer, your binder, whatever you have that you want to throw it on. They've got the kits up there already that you can purchase. They've got T-shirts. They've got other products that'll be coming soon. And again, it's tied with Soccer for All, which to me is the biggest part about all of this, because that means that you're supporting local, a local business as well in the process. And so it's a win-win-win. And I wanted to highlight that because I don't think enough has been said about that in terms of what that really means for the Dash. They haven't had an online soccer shop type of situation since they started. And, there are plenty of people that would pay good money for merch. And now there's a place to do that. And it's a place that's easily accessible from houston-soccer.com, or you can go to shop.houston-.com. No, we're not paid to give this advertisement. I'm giving it because I appreciate the work that they put into it. But the new jerseys are up there. So if you haven't seen them yet, which if you're probably listening to the show, you probably already have. But if you haven't, feel free to check them out. Tell me what you think. I know that a lot of people disagree with me, but I really do like how those kits look. And I know, some people will argue that the US kit is really not that different. And you're not 100% wrong, but if you look at the stripes on the side, it's just, to me, it is different. I just really like the way the Dash kits look. I like I said, and I can't tell you specifically why. I just think they look clean.
And I mentioned, I was talking to somebody on Twitter that, I'm not gonna lie, man, the Nike kits, as far as the Nike Dash collab, it is beating the Adidas Dynamo collab. So I mean, Nike is doing a really great job with the NWSL as far as jersey goes.
I would much rather have Nike right now for the MLS kits than Adidas right now. And it's not a knock on Adidas. It's just Nike is doing more to expand their templates, if you will, than I feel like Adidas is. And a perfect example is those Portland Thorns kits that came out, the black kits.
Yeah, man, I saw those.
Oh, look, okay. Like I said, I really do like this Dash kit, but if I was a Portland Thorns fan and that black kit came out, I would have 15 of them suckers on order. That kit is just beautiful. And I'm not a kit guy. I don't usually I like kits, but I'm not going to be like, oh, that's the best kit I've ever seen. But that Thorns kit, there are so many details in that Thorns kit without being overwhelming, that it's hard not to like it.
I agree with you completely. But, and like I said, just overall, the Nike collab with the NWSL, I've seen more positives from that collab than I have from the Adidas. I mean, like I with the template that the Adidas used for the jerseys this year for MLS, with that 3 stripe over the shoulder thing, it's it's hit and miss with some teams, and yeah, it's just I like it seems like they let all these teams kind of be independent with what they're trying to do with their home and away jerseys, and that's what I like. I mean, you're supposed to represent some part of your something about your city or the way or where you're at in your kits. Like the Barcelona kit, the reason it has 10 stripes is because the 10 regions in Catalonia. That's the reason why they have the 10 stripes, or when they do the stripe jerseys, and things of that nature. So I like the freedom Nike gives.
It is great. So a couple of things real quick, guys. Number one, if you're watching, do us a favor as always. Like the video, share the channel. Again, we are on Twitch now, twitch.tv/GenerationOrange. We're also on YouTube, You guys know we're on YouTube. Subscribe if you can. Follow us on Twitch if you can. Follow us on Twitter at Gen Orange Radio. We will continue to stream. We will continue to do shows. Obviously, shows are now going to move to Wednesdays as we are tonight. This is due to juggling personal obligations and commitments as well as other things. Wednesdays are just much easier for me. Thank you, Mark, for being willing to jump to Wednesdays. I appreciate that. And Nestor as well. And again, guys, again, we appreciate you guys. We know that this has been a rough time for everybody. We wish we could have been, more active, but there's also the caveat to that of how much is there really to talk about when there's no soccer going on for 2.5, 3, 4 months now. At some point you kind of run out of things to talk about related to soccer. So we did go a little bit on a hiatus, an unexpected one. We intended to have more shows recently, but work has just been kind of really insane lately. We hit a major deadline last week that we finished, and I'm very thankful for that. So hopefully that'll slow down a little bit. I don't project it to do so, but maybe, who knows. But guys, thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We do appreciate it. And, we hope we get to see you guys next week, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Central. Don't miss us. And as always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Sure, for sure, guys. See y'all next week.